Life, as we all know, is filled with decisions. Some are simple, like what to have for dinner, and others weigh on our hearts more heavily. One of the most difficult choices I ever made was deciding to move into a nursing home. At the time, it felt like the right decision. I was struggling to manage daily tasks on my own. My health was beginning to decline, and my family, though loving and supportive, had their own lives and obligations. I didn't want to be a burden. So, when the glossy brochures of peaceful gardens, smiling nurses, and friendly residents were placed in front of me, I allowed myself to believe that this was the best path forward, that this was going to be my safe haven. But what I found behind those well-designed pamphlets and warm promises was something quite different. I want to share with you, from my heart, the truths I learned the hard way. If you or someone you love is considering a nursing home, I urge you to listen closely to what I have to say. These are not just my stories, they are warnings, lessons, and lived experiences. Let's begin with the first harsh reality I encountered. Truth 1. The illusion of constant care. One of the major selling points for any nursing home is the idea of 24/7 professional care. The notion that no matter what happens, help is always just a call button away is incredibly reassuring. And it's true, in theory, but what I found in practice was far more complicated. Yes, staff are on duty around the clock. Yes, there is a system in place to monitor residents. But the reality is, the demand far outweighs the supply. During my first week in the facility, I fell while trying to reach the bathroom in the middle of the night. I pressed the call button immediately. I waited and waited. Minutes passed like hours. When someone finally came, they apologized profusely, explaining that they were attending to another emergency down the hall. I believed them, but this wasn't a one-time occurrence. It became a pattern. The staff weren't negligent, they were overwhelmed. Most nursing homes operate with a high resident-to-staff ratio. Many caregivers are responsible for too many people at once, often leading to delays, miscommunications, and unintentional neglect. It's not that the caregivers don't care. In fact, many of them do. But they are often underpaid, overworked, and emotionally exhausted. This illusion of constant care begins to crumble quickly once you live within those walls. You learn that unless it's a true emergency, you might be waiting a while. You learn to endure discomfort longer than you should. And over time, you learn not to ask for help unless absolutely necessary. Truth 2. Loss of autonomy. Before I moved in, I had my own little routines. I liked to sip my tea at 10 a.m. while reading the newspaper. I enjoyed watching old westerns late into the evening and waking up when the sun felt right, not when an alarm said I must. I had choices. I had freedom. That changed dramatically. In the nursing home, schedules rule everything. Breakfast is served at 7:30 sharp. Medication is administered at specific times. Activities are scheduled in group blocks. Lights out is encouraged by 9 p.m. It may not seem like a big deal to someone looking from the outside, but when your day is dictated by someone else, it slowly chips away at your sense of self. I remember one evening wanting to take a shower a little later than usual. I was told no. The aides were busy and the night shift wasn't available for bathing assistants. That was that. No negotiation, no alternative. I simply had to wait until the next day. You begin to lose the little decisions that once made you feel human. When to eat, what clothes to wear. Over time, it begins to feel like you are no longer living your life. You are simply existing in a framework designed for operational efficiency rather than personal dignity. Truth 3. Loss of autonomy. Ironically, one of the promises that drew me into the nursing home was the idea of community. I was told I would make friends, join social groups, play bingo, do crafts, and be surrounded by people my age with whom I could connect. But community doesn't just happen because people are placed in the same building. It takes nurturing. And what I found was quite the opposite. Many residents were battling their own health issues, mental decline, or simply weren't interested in making new connections. Staff didn't have the time or training to facilitate meaningful interactions. I spent many days sitting in the common room, surrounded by people, and yet feeling profoundly alone. Conversations were shallow, often interrupted. Friendships were fleeting, and sometimes painful, as they would disappear overnight due to illness, hospital transfers, or worse. Loss becomes a frequent visitor. Loneliness in a nursing home is unlike any loneliness I've ever felt. It's quiet, hollow, and constant. Even when you hear voices around you, you feel like a ghost in your own story. A wake-up call. By the end of my first month, the rose-colored glasses were gone. I no longer saw the nursing home as a haven. It was a complex institution, trying its best with limited resources, but far from the comforting picture painted in advertisements. That's not to say all nursing homes are terrible or that no one can find happiness there. But there are truths that must be acknowledged before making such a life-altering decision. You need to go in with your eyes wide open, fully aware of what you may be giving up. Truth number 3. The loss of personal dignity happens quietly. At first, it was the little things. Someone would come in to help me get dressed, but they'd rush. They'd pull my shirt on quickly, not noticing they'd tugged my shoulder too hard. Then it was shower time. I had to wait in a cold room, towel draped over my knees, until a staff member was available. No choice, no privacy, just a schedule. They don't mean to strip away your dignity, but when you're in a place that runs like a machine, where bodies are bathed, dressed, and medicated in shifts, it's inevitable. You become a task to complete, not a person to care for. And I'll be honest, the moment someone called me by the wrong name for the 3rd time in a week, something inside me cracked. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the person I'd become. What they don't tell you is how losing control over simple, daily choices, like when you eat or what you wear, chips away at your identity. Slowly, subtly, but steadily. If you're helping someone move into a nursing home, please visit often. Advocate for them. Remind the staff of their name, their likes, their stories. Bring dignity into the room with you. Truth number 4. The emotional toll is heavier than the physical one. There's a loneliness in nursing homes that doesn't show up on the medical chart. You might think people are surrounded by others their age. How bad can it be? But the truth is, emotional isolation can exist in the most crowded of places. You eat with the same faces, hear the same complaints, and tell the same stories over and over. Days blur together, and the ache of being forgotten becomes more painful than any physical condition. I remember sitting by the window one day, watching the trees sway gently in the wind, and thinking, when was the last time someone hugged me without gloves on? It's easy to forget that elders still crave connection, affection, spontaneity, things that make us feel alive. In many nursing homes, those things are rare luxuries. Depression is rampant. I saw people who once smiled easily fall into silence, not because their minds were fading, but because their hearts were tired of waiting. Waiting for a phone call, waiting for a visit, waiting for someone to treat them as a whole person again. Pause. Gentle music break. If you have a loved one in a home, I beg you, don't underestimate how powerful your presence is. A short visit, a familiar voice, a shared joke. These moments become lifelines. Truth number 5. Not all staff are kind, but the kind ones make all the difference. Here's a truth most people don't like to admit. Not everyone who works in a nursing home should be there. I met caregivers who were tired, overworked, and emotionally distant. Some were even harsh, snapping at residents, rolling eyes when asked for help. And sadly, there are those who take advantage of their power. I won't go into details, but I saw things that shook me. But I also met angels in scrubs. There was a nurse named Selena. She brought me warm tea before bed, not because she had to, but because she remembered I liked chamomile. There was John, a night staff member, who once stayed late just to help another resident call her son in another state. These people, the kind ones, restore your faith. They remind you that compassion still exists. but they are often overworked, underpaid, and overwhelmed. So, when you find one, appreciate them. Let management know. Bring them coffee. Write them a thank you card. They may be holding your loved one's hand when you are not there. And if you're choosing a facility, don't just look at the brochure. Visit at odd hours. Watch how the staff talks to the residents. Ask around. Because kindness isn't advertised. But it's everything. Truth 6. You start to feel forgotten, even by yourself. This one is the hardest to admit. Not because it's rare, but because it's painfully common. And, if I'm being honest, it's what broke me the most. When I first moved in, I kept telling myself, it's just temporary, it's for the best, I'll adjust. But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly I stopped recognizing the person I was becoming. I used to be the one who planned family gatherings, the one who had a say in her daily life, who chose her own clothes, her own meals, her own time to go for a walk. But here, everything is scheduled, labeled, controlled. And then it hit me. I wasn't just being forgotten by others, I was forgetting myself. I forgot the last time I laughed until I cried, the last time someone hugged me for no reason, the last time I felt like me, not a patient, not a number, not a burden. There's a silence that creeps in when no one asks how you're really doing, a numbness when the world keeps spinning outside and you're just here. It's not always visible. The food might be decent, the room's clean, the staff kind, but inside, a slow fade begins. And that's the truth no one puts in the brochure. So, if you're listening, please remember this. A nursing home might take care of your body, but you must protect your spirit. Keep the photos, call the friends, sing the songs. Keep something that reminds you of who you are. Because when you lose that, you lose everything. Truth number 7. Staff burnout is real, and it affects your care. I used to wonder why some of the nurses seemed distant or cold, why they rushed through routines like they were just ticking boxes. Then I realized, they're not the problem, the system is. Many nursing home workers are underpaid, overworked, and emotionally drained. Some are on double shifts, others barely have time to sit down, let alone care deeply for each resident. Imagine trying to comfort someone's mother or father with kindness when you've had 3 hours of sleep and 100 tasks waiting. It's heartbreaking because most of these caregivers truly want to help, but when the system doesn't support them, the compassion gets lost in the chaos. And sadly, it's the residents who pay the price. If you ever notice rushed interactions or missed medications, don't be too quick to blame the person in scrubs. Look deeper and speak up. Because unless someone advocates for the resident, these cracks in the system only get wider. Truth number 8. The loneliness can be crushing. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. This is something I never understood until I saw it in the eyes of my neighbors. Some of them hadn't had a visitor in months, some in years. And it wasn't just family forgetting. Sometimes they just didn't know how much their presence still mattered. One woman, Ellen, used to wait by the window every Sunday, hoping her daughter would show up. Every week, her heart would break a little more. One day she told me, "I don't miss the outside world. I miss being wanted in it." Let that sink in. Loneliness isn't just sad, it's deadly. It leads to faster cognitive decline, depression, and even shorter lifespans. A nursing home may provide shelter and food, but without connection, the soul withers. If you have someone in a facility, visit, call, write. Show them they still matter. because your 10 minutes could brighten their whole week. Truth number 9. You lose your freedom in small, silent ways. Nobody warned me about this one, and when it started happening, it felt like death by 1,000 cuts. No, you can't have coffee after dinner. We lock the doors at 7. You need permission to leave the premises. You have to sit at your assigned table. It sounds small, right? But over time, it adds up. You stop feeling like an adult. You stop feeling like you. Charles, a retired Army officer down the hall from me, once said, "I've faced enemy fire with more freedom than I get here." It's not that the rules are made to hurt you. They're made for efficiency, safety, control. But somewhere along the way, personal choice disappears. You're no longer the author of your own life. If you or your loved one values independence, ask tough questions before choosing a facility. How much control do residents really have? Can they choose what to eat, when to sleep, who to sit with? The answers may surprise you. Truth number 10. Without family involvement, you may slip through the cracks. This one's tough to say, but it's the most important. If no one's watching, mistakes happen. I've seen it too often. Residents who had no visitors got less attention, not out of cruelty, but because staff assume no one will notice. One man was left in a soiled bed for hours because his call light wasn't working. Another was given the wrong medication twice in 1 week. It's terrifying. But here's the truth. Nursing homes pay more attention when families are involved, when loved ones ask questions, when someone shows up at different hours, when someone checks the chart. It's not just about being present, it's about being seen, advocated for, respected. So if you have someone in a nursing home, become their advocate. Visit, observe, ask about their care. Not to annoy the staff, but to remind them, this person matters, someone loves them, someone is watching. Because sometimes that's the only thing that keeps standards from slipping. Final words, what I wish I knew before it was too late. Friend, if you've made it this far, I want to say something from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you for caring enough to listen, learn, and prepare. Moving into a nursing home is one of the biggest decisions a person or family can make, and it's easy to get swept up in brochures, fancy tours, and sales pitches. But the reality is often far more complex and far more difficult. These 10 brutal truths are not meant to scare you, but to protect you, because no one should suffer in silence, feel forgotten, or live out their final years with regret. Now that you know what I didn't, you can do better. You can ask the right questions. You can demand better care. You can make the right choice. And if you've already made the move and are facing some of these hard truths now, please know this: you are not alone. This channel, The Elder Mirror, is a place for stories like yours, for truth, for healing, for hope. So if this message resonated with you, consider subscribing. Share this video with someone who might need it, because these truths, they deserve to be known. Not just for us, but for everyone who comes after us.